The Second Coming, fact or fiction? One car company has the answer. That's this week on Motoring 2005.
TSN's Motoring 2005 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.
You know, you can't open the business page of any newspaper these days without reading how the domestic automakers are continuing to lose ground to the Japanese. I mean, even GM guru Bob Lutz admits that the day is coming when Toyota will be the #1 manufacturer in the world. But you know what? Bob and friends should also keep an eye on those Koreans. I mean, as we all know, Hyundai is improving, and Korea's oldest car manufacturer, Kia, is on a real tear. In fact, this company is now the fastest growing car company in the world. Well, this week we're out in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia, site of the 2010 Winter Olympics, which you'll be seeing on TSN. And this is the site that Kia has picked to unveil a vehicle that led the company into Canadian showrooms back in 1999. And that vehicle is the Sportage.
We're the fastest growing car company in the world. Now, if you think about that for a minute, that's quite a title to have. So we're just so excited about that. We're growing quickly in Canada. We've only been in Canada for 5 years. We're the second fastest growing car company in Canada. Our sister company, Hyundai, was the fastest growing car company. So there seems to be a trend developing here that we're pretty excited about.
I think that's probably an irrelevant fact. It doesn't really matter how fast you're growing, it's how fast you're growing profitably with happy customers. And so the key here is to, yeah, sure, you want to claim market share, but also do you want to have those customers stay with you. It costs probably 10 times as much money to conquest a new customer as it does to keep an existing one. So I would be equally concerned with saying we are the strongest in terms of retaining our customers, not just getting new ones.
Sportage for Kia will be very important. We believe we can sell somewhere between 6,000 or 7,000 a year. We've been allocated from the factory 4,000 units for the first year. So I'm a little disappointed with that, I have to tell you that. We know we can sell more. When we had Sportage originally, we were selling somewhere in the order of 6,000 units a year. So Sportage, I think, will be important for Kia in so much as they develop a personality for the brand.
Hey, you want a lift? Let's go!
We're going back to the IE commercial. We're having the Cajun man come back in with his crocodiles and swamp tours. We're going to create that atmosphere, that fun that's back in Kia with this Sportage. And we see that, I think, lifting the whole brand in Canada. People recognize Kia and who we are and who we stand for.
Well, we're very excited because it puts us right back squarely in the entry-level SUV market, which is 48%. We already have the Sorento, which competes in the midsize at 34%. So now we're going to have vehicles that compete in 82% of the SUV market. The only thing that's similar to this vehicle, the old one, is the name. It's completely new, ground up, new technology, lots of safety, completely different. We're going to have 7 models, starting from a 4-cylinder manual transmission front-wheel drive, all the way up to an automatic V6 ES model.
Kia probably made the right decision in 2002 when they got rid of the Sportage, because the product itself was no longer competitive at all, and it was probably hurting their position. And also keep in mind that Kia went bankrupt, and it took Hyundai to come in, buy the assets of the company, and fund the product portfolio. So by launching a new product based on a new platform in a market segment that is a really, really strong growth segment, particularly in Canada, but also in the U.S., this is a good move for them, because this is where they can pick up incremental gains. They are going to conquest people from Ford Escape, Honda CR-V, simply because they've got a price advantage and the product is now relatively competitive.
If you think back to even the Japanese manufacturers when they first came to North America, it did take time for them to really break through with their product and really change the perception of consumers. Kia, I think, has changed that perception quickly. Hyundai changed it very quickly, much quicker than the Japanese did. Because I think we launched with a vehicle like Sportage originally, I don't think people saw our company as just the inexpensive, cheap car company. We sold a lot of Sportages when we first launched in Canada, one of 2 cars that we launched with. So I think the perception of Kia is much better than it was of Hyundai, and I think the perception overall of the Korean manufacturers is getting much better.
You really can't compare it to the original. It's so much better in every way. It is good. You know, every aspect of it is good. It handles well. It's got ample power for the class of vehicle that it is. The interior quality is quite nice. And if you get the loaded one, it's like a little mini Lexus in there. It's quite nicely put together, and it looks like it will. Everything fits together well, so it looks like it'll hold up well.
This is a no-brainer. I mean, you know, this is where the marketplace is very active in Canada, and it's a growth segment. And so you can certainly sell, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 of any product if it's in the right segment and it's the right price. And I think they're entering a segment that's growing, and the pricing is right. I mean, there isn't a version of the Sportage that sells for $30,000. I mean, their big transaction price is probably going to be about $25,000, which is the sweet spot of the Canadian market.
As the old cartoon character Pogo used to say, I have seen the enemy, and he is us. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Three of the least stolen vehicles in North America all belong to one company. Now that statistic probably tells you that their cars are very boring, so boring in fact that thieves can't be bothered to nick them. This week on Test Drive we take a look at that very company's latest offering. Now this is the all-new Buick Allure. Will it join the least stolen list? According to the New York Times, the Buicks on the least stolen list are the LeSabre, Park Avenue and Rendezvous. Hardly surprising vehicles when all's said and done, as these things rank up there with watching paint dry when it comes to driving excitement. The Allure, however, differs from these cars in that it has both the stake for which Buick is famous and more than a little sizzle, especially when properly equipped. You know, the single biggest improvement to the top-of-the-line Allure is its engine. This new 3.6-litre unit uses twin overhead cams and variable valve timing. As a result, well, you get over 200 pounds-feet of torque, anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 RPM. Not only is that plenty, it's right where the driver needs it. Along with a peak torque of 225 pound-feet comes a very usable 240 horsepower. While it's true the numbers do not match Chrysler's Hemi in terms of brawn, on balance it may actually be a better choice. It's quick enough to pass a slower moving car with authority, and yet reasonably frugal, returning a test average of 11.1 litres per 100 kilometres. For those that take the lesser Allures, well, you'll have to do with GM's antiquated but bulletproof 3.8-litre V6. This thing pushes 200 ponies and 235 pound-feet of torque. While it is a rewarding drive, it cannot fill the shoes of the 3.6 and the refinement that engine shows anywhere between idle and redline. Either engine is hooked up to a smooth and slick-shifting 4-speed automatic. The trouble is, it lacks its key competitors and the 5- or 6-speed automatics they feature. Ditto the lack of a manual mode. When it comes to highway ride, this Buick Allure is very quiet indeed, and it boils down to two things. Obviously all the regular insulation, but more importantly, on the top of the line model, the front side windows are made of laminated glass. That basically gives you a glass-plastic glass sandwich. When you put the lot together, it's very effective at blocking road noise from getting outside to the interior cabin. Indeed, this thing's as quiet as any Lexus I've driven. The other place the CXS betters the other Allure models is in the handling department. Simply it earns a stiffer Grand Touring suspension and better 225/55 R17 wheels and tyres. The result is a comfortable ride that gives up little in terms of handling. True, the Allure does not romp through the pylons like a sports car, but considering it's aimed at the boulevardier and not a driver's driver, while it's very poised, doing what's asked of it without slipping into terminal understeer. Likewise, the amount of body roll is well controlled. To say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement. When you slip behind the wheel of this Buick, you get exactly what you expect. A classy and well-crafted interior with but two pet peeves. First of all, putting a manual recliner on an otherwise powered seat, well, on a $40,000 car, it just does not work. The other thing, most Buick owners, at least as a group, they're all beyond retirement age. So what does Buick do? Tiny little buttons on the center stack. It really does make no sense whatsoever. The other place the interior lacks is seat bolstering. All are flat and so do not offer much in the way of lateral support. The CXS cries out for something a little sportier. That aside, there's plenty of room and the trunk will swallow a commendable 16 cubic feet of cargo space. As for safety, the Allure comes with a good set of anti-lock brakes that also work to bring an all-speed traction control system. On the other hand, if you want drop-down side air curtains to go with the dual front airbags, well, you're going to have to pay for them separately, which is very disappointing considering they're standard on the Ford 500 and Toyota Avalon. The new Buick Allure is the best Buick to date without question. It's very comfortable, very quiet, it handles exceptionally well considering its station in life, and it's got that very sweet 3.6 litre engine, at least if you go with the up-level model. The bottom line, this car is not going to join that least stolen list.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns your vehicle's lighting system. It's so important to road safety that you've got a fully functioning light system that I can't believe how many people just don't pay attention to it and never check it. Next time you're stuck in the passenger seat, stuck in a traffic jam, look around and you'll see all kinds of cars with brake lights burned out, signals burned out, side marker lights and license plate lights not functioning, headlights burned out. Tonight when it's dusk, I want you to go out and do me a favor, go out and do a circle check of your vehicle and check all the lights. Now we've got full sun right now, so now's the time to get the lamp assemblies out and replace any bulbs. We can really see what we're doing. But if you check your vehicle at dusk or after dark, you can make a checklist of just which bulbs you've got to replace in your vehicle. Go to your owner's manual, get the part numbers, go to the auto parts store and get those bulbs. Your owner's manual usually shows you how to change them, and it's usually a pretty easy deal to do. That's your Midas tip of the week.
What we have here is a concept car called the Advanced Lightweight Coupe, and it's made of aluminium. It is a prelude to the way of thinking for the styling of the next generation of sports cars. It's not the actual car itself that we're working on, but it is a prelude to the style, the type of style that we want to produce for the future products. And not just in sports cars, you can pick up elements of this that will appear in future saloon cars as well. The inspiration can stretch right across any areas of British sports cars, but I think I wanted to capture something that it's not as pure as an E-Type. I don't think a car could ever be as pure as an E-Type because legislation and other things will prevent us from doing that. But I wanted to capture something that had the spirit of the E-Type, so that was always in the back of my mind, or the designers' minds when they were working on it, that purity. It's an aluminium body, as is now our strength at Jaguar. The XJ is aluminium. We're going to continue to pursue aluminium as a way of making cars. We believe it's it's the right thing to do. Weight reduction is going to become quite a primary objective for lots of manufacturers in the future. We're mastering that, probably ahead of most. When you think of the power-weight ratio and the economy we can get with it and everything else, it's a very positive thing.
Jaguar could use a shot in the arm. Are you hoping this thing will be more than just a concept?
Jaguar, what's happening behind the scenes at Jaguar is beyond a shot now. We're doing fantastic stuff. It just takes a while to come through, you know, that's all.
You know, it's said it's the small things in life that really make the difference. For example, you have the foresight to make sure you've got a full 4-liter jug of windshield washer in the vehicle. only to find that your reservoir holds less than 4 liters. So you've got two choices. You put the jug in the trunk and it swishes back and forth, or you leave it in the garage. Well, Kia has covered all its bases in that its reservoir holds a full 4-liter jug of windshield washer. Like I said, it's the small things. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, I guess it's been a while since you put washer fluid in any car, because just about everybody's car for the last 10 or 12 model years has taken a full 4-liter jug of fluid. But Brad, you'll get your chance back at me in just a second. There's two things they say, man-made things you can see from outer space. One's the Great Wall of China. The second thing, all those parking lots full of unsold Kias. Anyhow, this week I'm working on my ancient GM car here, and this is where Brad will get back at me because, you know, you're supposed to do all this maintenance and upkeep on your car so you don't break down. Well, my car broke down a long way from home the other day. Started up fine, drove fine, went to shut it off. A friend of mine actually had the car, went to shut it off, and the car wouldn't shut off. Turned the key all the way back, take the key out, car's still running. And what had happened was a gear inside the steering column had fractured, broken in two. The lower piece, which engages with the ignition switch, stayed in the run position. The upper piece came back up with the key, and the key would come out, but the car's still running. So the only thing we could do was disconnect the battery cable to shut it off. Now, here's the steering column out of the car, and believe me, it's a huge job to replace this little part on this particular car. You've got to completely remove the steering column, as you can see here. You've got to completely disassemble it right down to its last component part, just about, in order to get the part that's broken in there. Definitely not a do-it-yourself job. Interesting thing about this is, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the switch gear involved with the steering column is not mounted where you'd think it would be. For example, the ignition switch is not where you put the key in. It's down here at the base of the column. When you turn the key, that rod actuates the ignition switch and turns the car on and off and turns it to the crank position. There's the part that broke inside our steering column. It should all be in one piece like this, but it fractured right in the middle. This part at the top with the gear stayed engaged with the ignition cylinder and keys, and this lower part stayed engaged with the ignition switch, so the car was stuck in the run position. There's the actuator rod going down to the ignition switch, and when we turned it off, the upper part just separated and went up, the lower part stayed down, car wouldn't shut off. This rod over here actuates your dimmer switch for high and low beam headlights, and up here we've got the switch for the turn signals. And the what is usually referred to as the multifunction switch often does your washers and wipers, not on this car, but often has a number of functions. Anyhow, when something like this happens, it's usually a tow-in and a major repair job. As you can see, entire steering column out of the car and major disassembly. Definitely not a do-it-yourself deal. Here's our ignition switch, sits on top of the steering column, just about where your shins would be. You can see the wiring bundle that goes over here and then plugs into the main harness of the car right here. You can also see the shift interlock cable right here that goes over to the console shift, the gear shift on this car. And you can see the headlight dimmer switch right here, and that would mount right there on top of our steering column as well. And there's an awful lot of wiring to disconnect and a lot of hardware to come out. It's a job that you've got to be very familiar with. Definitely out of your league, Brad. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2005.
We're a little bit late getting to the shoot this morning. Well, I got here in time, but Brad was late. He missed his turn, not once, but twice. Now, he was driving an SUV, which is sort of evidence of brain damage to begin with. But he was talking on a cell phone. He missed his exit. He turned around, missed his exit again. Now, he wasn't drinking his coffee. Brad's a Starbucks man. He drinks the coffee before he gets in the car. So, all credit to him for that. Now, I can't be too harsh on him because I was driving here this morning in a manual transmission car, an old Volkswagen without a cup holder. I had my coffee jammed down between the handbrake and the passenger seat, and I was talking on my cell phone. And I just found out that even our cameraman admitted to that. We are all guilty of this, and we have to stop. Now, I used to think that the worst I ever saw was a guy driving on a highway in California, sorting through his vacation photographs. We've all heard about people eating cereal behind the wheel and shaving and putting on their makeup. My daughter topped that. She saw a guy driving on a highway watching a movie in a camcorder. Can it get worse than that? Well, as a matter of fact, it can. I told that story to a friend of mine the other day. He saw a guy riding a motorcycle on a very twisty mountain road, switchback after switchback. He thought this road was so cool, he wanted to capture it on video, so he was riding his motorcycle with one hand, shooting in a camcorder. Folks, it has to stop. Now, we have enough laws. We don't need more laws. We have impaired driving laws. You can be impaired by fatigue or by ignorance or by distraction. The cops can already charge you. We don't need more laws. And I'm not saying we have to arrest everybody and throw them in jail, but maybe officers across this great land of ours, maybe you could shut down one of your radar fishing holes and go out on the highway and catch people doing this stuff. Maybe you don't have to give them a ticket. Pull them over, give them a slap upside the head, and just say, folks, will you pay attention? Multitasking is a great thing, but driving on the roads is complicated enough. Don't make it worse. And we'll try to do better ourselves. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, when you come to Whistler, British Columbia, there is no shortage of activities. Skiing, snowboarding, dog sledding, snowmobiling, and even sharing a few beverages with friends. But we're traveling down the highway. We look out into this lake with a thin ice base, and what do we see? Well, I'm not sure, but some guy is out there maybe just dreaming about summer. But two thoughts come to mind. One, something about getting a life, and the other one, which is probably more appropriate, is whatever turns you on. Anyway, before we go, a few final thoughts on the new Kia Sportage. It's head and shoulders over its predecessor. And I'm telling you, you get in that V6 fully loaded for about $30,000, believe me, it's bound to take a chunk out of some of the competition. But of course, Graham will have a much closer look on a future test drive. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The point that they're making is that their customers are looking for larger vehicles, and if they want to stay with the Subaru brand, then they're out of luck. They'll have to go somewhere else. So now what they've done is they've come up with a vehicle that incorporates all of the good features of Subarus and put it into a category that's become much more popular in the marketplace.
TSN's Motoring 2005 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.